The other point is that we recognize that the experts are actually the people who are working. I mean, who's going to be an expert on what's going to keep you safe? Is it someone sitting in Washington or a congressperson, or is it the person who actually is in those workplace conditions? I mean, as a parent, I'll tell you, when I work, I care most about the safety of my kids, and I'm vigilant about that. Well, similarly, people in the workplace are probably the ones who are going to care most about the safety of their workplace, and we need to give them a voice in what these policies are going to be, and value their expertise and not just impose the policy on them.
Yes, absolutely. And wrote, what about making sure they get paid properly, premium compensation?
Yeah, no, I see someone's raising that also on hazard pay. Well, to me, it's common sense. These people were doing these jobs before COVID, and they're still doing the jobs after COVID. But the difference is they're doing the same job with risk to their safety and risk to their family safety. So actually, if you just believe in the market principles, don't you think they should get compensated more for the risk they're undertaking? That's actually, any economist would say, of course they should. They're taking a high risk. But what is happening? Their productivity, their risk, where they should be compensated for, that's getting taken away, and it's actually going into these executives and corporations. And what we're saying is, no, reward the people who are actually doing the work with the hazard pay.
Ro, I feel like this should have happened a long time ago. Even if there wasn't a pandemic, people need to get paid more.
Yeah, no, and I think you're absolutely right, Deb. I mean, the Silicon Valley, they've been fighting this fight for almost a decade with people who say they're invisible. The saddest part of it is it's not just about the pay; it's people not being noticed, not being appreciated. I've heard stories of folks going to work and they say no one asks them about their life. No one says hello. They're sort of invisible. And someone said to me, well, finally you noticed us. Finally, society has woken up and now you're calling us essential. How long is this going to last? And I hope this is a real change, a wake-up call for us, that these workers really were the glue, that we're so dependent on them. And while our bill that we're working on is immediate to get it into the next stimulus, these really need to be permanent changes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am all for that. And yes, we're going to work through, I know that we're in California, the gig workers, they're in the news lately because California wants to reclassify them. They have been getting the short end of the stick for a long time, having to pay all of the taxes on their own, which affects their bottom line. And what I found out when I was working on the Gig is Up Act, the Gig is Up to make these multi-billion-dollar corporations pay their fair share of taxes for the workers who are making them wealthy. We found that some folks in expensive cities like Washington, D.C. were only making $8 an hour by the time they paid all their taxes. So I'm happy, in this pandemic, they're essential workers too, because they're getting folks from here to there, and so yes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, Deb. One of the workers put it well. He said to me, innovation doesn't mean misclassification. I mean, yeah, fine, okay, you've had an app that allows us to take Uber, Lyft. That's great. No one is faulting you for coming up with an app, but that doesn't mean that you somehow get a pass and can treat the drivers in a way that violates basic laws. I mean, if you need to charge more for those Uber drives and Uber rides, fine. If it's a little bit harder for you to raise capital and you're going to be worth 20 billion instead of 50 billion, fine. But what you can't do is say we're going to treat our drivers in a way that doesn't give them benefits, that doesn't give them regular hours, the books for so many years to protect employees. So I actually think that by doing those type of shenanigans, they give innovation a bad name. But what we should be doing is celebrating the advances of technology, but making sure that workers have equity in it, that workers are gaining as well. And certainly we can do that. I mean, Amazon was $1 trillion company, and when Senator Sanders and I remember we did the Stop Bezos Act at one point, and people said, "Oh, how are you going to deal with this? They're going to automate the jobs, and you can't ask them to do $15." Well, guess what? They did $15, and their stock value still was $1 trillion, and they didn't automate the jobs. They were hiring more people than ever. So some of these arguments that are not really, don't pass the smell test. And the real fact is that workers deserve more pay.
Absolutely. Workers have felt invisible in the past, but really, I mean, what do we value? What do we value in this country? And we need to be honest about that, right? About what we value. We value fresh vegetables, and we value healthy food to eat, and that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen by oppressing workers and putting. We just need to make sure that we're clear about what is valuable in this system, and make sure that those workers have what they need, because they're providing those things for us.
I see all these comments joking around about you or I running in the Senate. Let me tell you something, because I know people were asking you to do that. I actually think, Deb, that the best possible place to serve right now is in the House of Representatives. That's where a lot of the progressives are. That's where we're getting the boldest progressive policy, where we have a strong progressive caucus. And I think if we can get more progressives in there, more women, more people of color, and have build a real power base, that we can get a lot of this done, fighting and leading in the House of Representatives.
Exactly. And I feel like every single person in this country, they benefit Republicans as much as they do Democrats. And so it makes sense that we are there for it. When you think about the Republican agenda, where they really want to give tax breaks to the rich folks and trickle down, and maybe somebody at the bottom will get one of their crumbs. That's not the way we need to be doing business. So yes, I'm proud. I'm a proud progressive, because I feel like we are inclusive of every single person in this country. We want everyone to succeed, and I hope that yes, we'll just continue to keep working to make that happen.
And Deb, tell people a little bit about your personal story. I mean, were you, if I'm correct, you were the first Native American woman elected in the history of this country to the United States Congress?
Well, I'll say one of the first two. Sharice Davids, yes. The slogan to my campaign in 2018 was, "Congress has never heard a voice like mine," and so now I'm in Congress, and yesterday was a National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, and I feel like that was one of my issues, and we've been working hard on that, and thank you. Issues like that, that haven't been in mainstream media. So we need to let people know about these issues so they can care about them, and that's how I feel about this Essential Worker Bill of Rights. People might not know that these people, they don't make enough money to have somebody care for their child. They don't make enough money to have health care or health insurance. We need to make sure that we're bringing attention to these issues so that everybody can care about them.
Yeah, and just to highlight some of the common sense things in the Worker Bill of Rights, it says pay people for their hazardous work they're doing. It says make sure you give them masks and make sure you have social distancing and protection. It says we got to have some childcare, because how can you expect people to come to work if their kids are at home? And by the way, they can't have their grandparents look after the kids, because that's putting the grandparents at the most risk. I mean, that's the last thing you want. How do we make sure they get health care? I mean, I know both of us have supported Medicare for all, but the idea that you wouldn't at least give Medicare to the people who don't have, in this crisis, who don't have insurance is mind-boggling to me. And they're talking about paying COBRA. Well, if you're going to pay the private sector, why not just pay Medicare and give people better care? I mean, I share with people that, I have mild asthma, not very serious, and I had a shot that I need to get, the Nucala shot, to make sure that you don't have any issues with lungs. And initially, the insurance company denied it. And I'm in Congress, and my doctor ended up being diligent and ended up getting it for all the patients. But it's crazy what's happening with the private insurance companies. And think about if they're doing that to members of Congress, what they're doing to people who don't have that kind of privilege.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Ro. I'm honored to serve with you. Thank you for your leadership on this issue and on so many more issues. Silicon Valley is lucky to have you, and we all are to have. One of the things I like about this Essential Worker Bill of Rights is childcare. Yes. And I know, like, my daughter's 25 years old now, so I don't have to get childcare for. But you know what? When I was a young, I was never that young, but as a single mom. But when I was a single mom and she was young, it was a challenge for me. So thank you for that piece too. And
well, thank you, Deb. You've got with Senator Warren an outstanding bill on child care. I think it's the gold standard. I'm on it, and ultimately we need to pass that, which would give everyone in this country who needs it a child care. And the economic studies, as are so overwhelming. I've got young kids now, so I can say this. I mean, by the age of 5, so much of a child's development, so much of their way of not making that investment is such a abdication by society. But listen, I want to give you the last word. Why don't you share what we can do, what people who are watching can do to make sure that the Essential Workers Bill of Rights that we've worked on, that we can try to get that into the next stimulus.
Absolutely. Well, I always feel, Ro, that when, as I mentioned earlier, if we tell people about issues, because we want them to care about it. So you can help us by, you're helping us right now by being on this Instagram Live. So when we're off Instagram Live, you can absolutely retweet, repost, comment, reply. You can write to your members of Congress about this and make sure that people understand. You can get a story. If you yourself are an essential worker, we want to hear your story. Tell us about what it's like to work on the front lines every day, and make sure that people know and understand you are the expert. As Rose said, you're the expert in your position. So let us know what it's like. Tell us why we need to pass this. We need to move forward with this Essential Workers Bill of Rights. And that's really what we absolutely